Very cool. Hello.
Hello, Rob.
Hello. Good afternoon, I guess it is for you.
Yeah, 4 o'clock here in Dublin, Ireland.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Ireland. I traveled around there for a little while when I was backpacking around Europe, and it's such a amazing place.
Yeah, it is. How long ago was that?
Oh, that was a while ago. That was kind of right after I graduated high school, or no, after I graduated college. So that was about 2001.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Very fun. Very fun though. Um, yeah, the culture and the people, are just like amazing as a reflection from a Yank. Hi, Tony.
Good morning, Rob. Nice to see you. With the last minute Charlie here coming in.
Oh, that's all right. I think, hopefully we'll have a couple more folks joining us. Um, I was a bit of a last minute Charlie myself
I've
preparing.
got my Phantom on. Do you guys mind, or should I try to turn it off?
No, no, by all means. Yeah, I'm recording as well. Yeah, hopefully we get
Uh,
some some interesting stuff. I mean, we had the meeting last night.
I
Um,
missed it. Yeah.
oh, well, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, that's why we're doing two a week, so hopefully, right, every folks worldwide can come. But there were a lot of great ideas that came in. Yeah, very cool ideas. And so, we're gonna use the technology we now have. So we're gonna take the meeting yesterday and the meeting today and those recordings and kind of bring in allow AI to bring in all the kind of ideas and suggestions um, for the community and for the app and how it could work. So I'm glad to do that because I took some notes, but I can't catch it all. Yeah. And how was yeah, well, I think maybe we'll give it another 3 minutes or here or so, see if other folks are gonna show up. Um, how did the co-working go yesterday, Tony?
It was interesting. Uh, I, I can't remember the nuances, but the difference between collaborating and co-working was we talked about that.
Mm.
Uh, and Sia, is that her name? It's
Yeah.
Sia S.
See it, Saya is how you
Saya.
pronounce it. Yeah.
Right. I'm getting in gear this morning. Right. Well, what I like about what you're doing is you're taking your time bringing us on board and bringing our engagement in a slow, but not, tedious way, but in a cautious, um, deep way, emotional, relationship, and intellectual. Really like that. So that's why I'm here to
Mm.
learn and see if we can make this work. It's interesting. The challenge of cultural, what's the right word? Consciousness that we're attempting. Yeah. So I'm learning what you guys are up to and how we're going to do it. So we'll kick this can down the road together. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Tony. I know, I think, yeah, in the past, right, it was there's a lot to do, right? So it's just anytime somebody would jump in and be excited to be like, oh, okay, come on, let's go and let's get to work and do this and do that, and I think
Yeah.
over time learn let's let people come in and see, what it is that we're doing and then, ramp up whatever participation. Um, to the level that they, that makes sense to them, because yeah, you get it.
You know,
Hi, Tim.
it begs a question. I'm sorry, I'll get into the meeting, but we're going to do profiles today, right? That's the agenda.
Yeah, that's the agenda. Yeah, I'm gonna go over that and the profiles and whole person profiles and all that. So, um, yeah, that's the agenda. I've got. In fact, I can drop this in the chat now.
Hmm.
Um, it's yeah, it's not bad. It's not quite perfect, but but I've got a like a handout, and it's a handout, and you can read it at your leisure or follow along with it. As we're in the meeting today, um, or just, put it aside for, for later. But essentially, it's just going over, it's a handout that just speaks to kind of the concepts that we're talking about today.
So
Um,
where is this profile? Is this on Google Drive or is this on your website? Is this
so this
a
is this is going to be on the member platform. So this is the member platform, and we'll dive into the actual app
oh,
and going over it and onboarding that, and so we can actually kind of
okay.
get you up and running, Tony, on the app. But
Yeah.
I want to introduce the concept and then have us talk about it
Yeah.
first.
Can't
So
wait. Can't wait.
yeah. Um, yeah. So let's
Yeah.
see. So Tim, yes. Hi, Tim. Did
Yeah.
you have a question?
And where's the key for the house?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Could you say that again, please? Or maybe you're not asking.
That's great. You can just leave it in the little basket.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Welcome.
Oh, okay. Maybe you're not asking a question. So, hi, Justin. Hi, Tim. Hi, everyone. So I think
Hi.
let's
Bye. Don't slip.
I'd say so we're gonna have a chance. Hi, Justin. We're gonna have a chance to to chat and get input from everybody. So my thought is, hi, Tim.
Hello again. Ooh, sorry, I was not muted.
Yeah, you weren't. That's okay. You were saying goodbye to somebody, and
Yeah.
it was nice. So yeah, might as well get going. So my thought is for me to just share a little bit about this topic here, and then we definitely want to get input from everybody. So my thought is when we go around and get input from everybody, folks can just do a brief introduction of who they are, their name, where they're calling in from, and that can hopefully combine those those two aspects. So I'm happy to jump in unless anybody has any particular questions or concerns before I do. Okay. So just to give a little breakdown, the idea of today is for me to for me to first introduce kind of this topic, right? There's four main aspects of this community economy, and so we've broke this down into four onboarding modules. So for me to just introduce kind of the concept behind it, and then for us to talk about that as a group, and delve into that, and there's have a little bit of a co-creation process, and then for us to take a look at the actual member portal platform, and go over some onboarding, any questions that might come up, how we're actually like using this in the platform and then in the economy. So yeah, that's the general idea. So I'm gonna yeah, look, I'm not sure if everybody, let me just, I know sometimes the chat doesn't. So I dropped a PDF into the chat. That's just a little handout. So the whole person profile. So the idea that that's here is really there's I think kind of two main like general ideas around this whole person profile. So, the first one is in our, in our professional world and actually in life, a lot of times we have to split ourselves off, right? So there's this schism that can happen, right? And speaking just to, professionally, that can happen because, in our professional world, we have to really seem like this, a lot of times, the majority of time, I think, in order to find work, to get jobs, we really have to seem like this kind of polished, you know, this polished gem that says, okay, I'm looking for a job doing this, so this is what I do, and kind of narrow ourselves down into, a specific, a kind of narrow part of ourselves. And so in this kind of new economic paradigm, we're saying, how can we shift that? How can we, still be professional, yes, but also, open up to all of who we are. So how do we, start to reconnect with that? And then how do we, allow ourselves to do that together as a group, and support each other in doing that? So, there's a lot in there. It's very juicy. Part of that is like, and this was a big part of the discussion yesterday, right? Which is, in a group like this, how much do we share? How vulnerable do we get, right? Because it's still coming in as a kind of professional group. So, there is this balance, right? Of like, don't want to come in and start, telling all my life stories and all my traumas and break down, right at the beginning and have that as like the main part of my profile. But we also don't want to, again, like how can we, bring all of ourselves in? So that's one main piece. And I think that the second main piece, right, and all this goes together is how do we support each other and ourselves in continuing to evolve and develop who we are, both personally and professionally. So, again, if I'm coming in and I'm like a website expert, right? Or a, website developer or something. I might be, and this is a little bit true for me, I might be bored with websites, and I might want to transition into something else. I might want to get into graphic design or whatnot, or I might not know what I want to do, right? But I know that there's something where I feel like my gifts and abilities, my natural talents want to develop in a different area. So how do we do that, right? In this kind of like both and way, how do we help each other, um, still stay, sort of support ourselves where we are, right? Because I might be able to make money doing websites. So how do I support ourselves there, but also, allowing myself to explore, where I want to be, how I want to develop. And, some of that might be professionally, some of that might just be, exploring, okay, what do I do well? What are my gifts and abilities? So that really to me is the second main aspect here, because for myself, like this ultimate vision is how we work together. There's this way where we use this terminology, a new way of working together. To me, what that looks like is everybody really like aligned with their mission and purpose in life and in alignment with their gifts and abilities, in a way where it's really being of service to the world, to people and planet, and where that person is also able to kind of receive abundance. So, those are the kind of main aspects I think as I speak to this kind of whole person mindset, this whole person profile. Yeah, there's plenty more I could say about it, but I don't want to keep speak at us for too long. The other aspect is that goes along with this is really kind of a more practical aspect, and that has to do with the app and how it's designed, which is how can we find really great matches for each other, right? So there's this whole economy, something I hadn't really thought about it, or like in this term, Paul. I love hearing different terms, for like what this is. Paul, you were naming it as like a clearinghouse for intangibles, um, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So because there's so many different, tangibles and intangibles that we can match up with, right? And there's more informal needs and offerings. There's the voucher exchanges. There's just like being able to connect with the right people. Part of this from our professional skill sets and more of this kind of whole person aspect is how do we get really granular, right? So if someone's a software engineer, um, it's like, okay, cool, software engineer. Well, I might need somebody to help me with a very particular kind of software using a very particular code, something like that. So if that's written in this person's profile, then I can narrow in and really find the right person. So yeah, I think those are kind of the main three thoughts pieces that I have. So yeah, I'd love to just kind of go around and have folks, yeah, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and where you're calling in from, and then yeah, hear any thoughts or input or addition um, to this, and kind of with the idea of you know how would you know like how would you design this aspect of it and like these member profiles, if you were a co-creator of this community economy, which you are. So yeah, if anybody has any thoughts or would like to share, I'd love to open it up. Mr. Paul, please.
Misha an mhainneag agus tuirmid díobh bannacht na sí as éireann tá mé as na tuathail é danan. So I'm bringing in my Irish language and I'm bringing you the blessings of the ancient mythological beings of Ireland, the tuathail de danan. Rob, you mentioned that we use updated language and we make up new words that help people to evolve beyond the baggage of an old word. And individual is such an old word. So we, in our Commons guidelines, we use the word individual just so that you'll hear it differently. Because individual comes from the word in divided, which actually means whole. It means whole already, but we have now taken individual to mean isolated and separated. So I'm glad you're talking about the whole person, but the word individual already means a whole person, but we're the ones who've made it incoherent. And what I was first curious about is when all of these skills are put into the platform, all of the skills becomes a whole person. And is there a way now to look at everything that's going on within the platform as a whole moving individual being? So that was a technical question. And it also got me to write the question down, who are we as a whole? So let's say there's 200 people in it and there's all the skills. Can we look at a broad overview, really step back out 60,000 feet, and then we can see who we are. I'd be curious how this application would work if it was implanted into an online platform called Fiverr, for example. What would it do to Fiverr? And it was just a curious question as you came in. So you're talking about, well, we shouldn't put our life story in and regurgitate our drama, wherever that is. That's when we're running real processes with real people, that's exactly what we do. We give people 15 minutes at the beginning of a process, and we say, look, have a look at the last 50 years. What was good? What was bad? You have 15 minutes to tell us, and then in that storytelling, everybody gets a chance to listen, and everybody knows where everybody is coming from. And it's actually up to the holder of the space to do the first sharing. And then if there's a co-leader, they'll do the second sharing. And it's the degree to which the space holder is authentic and tells the truth that the group drops into a space of authenticity and being able to tell the truth. So just said there's something what we do in our processes. Um, so what I'm hearing is it's good to list what we do, but now you're asking what do we do? What do we want to do vocationally? What do we want to do in personal development? And I imagine there's some space in the profile, which I've already done, but I didn't do it really consciously. I spent maybe 20 minutes. I'll come back to it. Um, but I would like to put in something that I'm noticing in the establishment of corporations and in the establishment of people's placement as working in corporations. Work, that four-letter word, is the problem. Work is the problem. And trade is an addiction. And money is a poison. So given this is the way we're viewing where we are in the world, what we've seen in corporations, what we've seen in communities, I'm curious about how can this platform help us to untangle ourselves from work being the four-letter word, the transaction for which your hour has to be paid for by me. I have to pay you $60, yeah, but I charge you out to the client at $120. Okay, so that's what's actually happening in corporations. Anybody who's on the profit and loss account is getting charged out somewhere for more than they're being paid. So every single member of a corporation is essentially enslaved. So how can we work with the ideas in this platform which dissolves that element of indenture? And then, as you said, I did notice when we were in our first call that this has the potential to be a clearinghouse for intangibles. So compassion, kindness. I'm curious about how that might get recorded in the system. And that's my check-in. You'll see the name Aeronomics here. I'm in Ireland. We're setting up a community-based process, although we call it Cosmunity, because we give source and divine being a covenant in the organization, which is a commons. And we also give nature a covenant in the commons. So nature and the divine have a seat in the decision-making processes. And we're applying five processes to small groups. We're teaching them dialogue. We're using ancient wisdom. We're using generative AI, debt-free currency, which I think this might be the platform for. And the final piece is alterative collective healing, which is anything from breath work up to plant medicine for members of the community to really access the divine and cosmic women wisdom. I did say women, didn't I? The divine and cosmic women and wisdom of Gaia and her ancestors. So that's me. Thank you for everything. Check.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. Uh, Clearly, right, this Paul is a person who's been working on this and for a long time as well. Thank you. There's so much there that you said it's really rich. I could comment on a lot of that, but I want to allow the flow to continue to the folks that are here. So I took notes on all of that. Yeah, beautiful, Paul. There's thank you for that. Gosh, there's so much I think to speak to there. Um, yeah, but I would love to just ride that wave and continue the flow if the next person, whoever, if there's someone who feels called to jump in.
Sure. Let's use a trampoline. Let's jump in. Well, first of all, not directed to this project, but Garama hug at Paul for the work you're doing in Ireland, and also I appreciated the intro in Guelga. Much appreciated to revive languages that have suffered a lot. The project looks really cool. So my name is Tim. I'm joining from Whitehorse, Yukon, northern Canada, surrounded by the boreal forest, and spring is just happening. Life is coming back to the forest and to the animals. Well, the animals were already alive, but things are springing back. So I'm joining today out of a mix of curiosity to see. I joined the first call during LimiCon, which was a conference about, I don't even know how to describe LimiCon. If raise your hand if anyone was there at that conference. No, it's challenging a lot of the beliefs and bringing people want to see um, more wholesome people interaction, and also um, bridging with some of the worries of what is called often the meta crisis. There's a lot of authentic relating to each other, lots of spaces for being. Um, yeah, I've often tried to define it for myself. So that's how I found the HSC the first time. Then Christine reached out to me, hey, we're doing this call today. So yeah, jumping in to exchange, because there was a lot of questions that came to me, but also I like the approach of the project and redefining some of the interactions, especially at a time where I left my job and I'm looking at how can the economy be different? How can I put food in my belly without being stuck in going back in some other employment and not aligned with my values? This is how I'm landing here today. And I'd completed or did part of my profile yesterday in a bit of time. I was able to put towards it, and it was fairly straightforward. I appreciated the process. Didn't give, and I come from a background in computer science, wanting to explore more what it means to be human in the age of AI. So not AI everything for the sake of AI, but how can AI be in, even saying in service to human doesn't really feel good. How can we have relationship and help each other, AI and human and all the people and all life species? That's what I want to be exploring next. And so yeah, I do like the idea of even the struggle of people, because I'm sure there can be a lot of people joining holistic system co-op um, who have a hard time selling themselves. Yet what we've struggled with is building our strength. And oftentimes, like, I don't know how to sell myself. I don't realize that I'm really good at X because I just absorbed that experience. So having people's stories as blog posts, as I'm not sure how, or even as videos, or as something private that helps surface what skills developed throughout that experience would be a good way. And definitely helping to bridge through vulnerability, sharing, and making us more human to each other would be good. And I see the pull back on how much is too much of a share, and some people really go in a lot of share, which monopolize the entire space for other people. So there's some balancing, and there can be some story weaving to be done with that information and to surface the skills and what's really present for a person. And another thought that came to me is that was through your share, Paul, helping people remain in alignment with their values and, so to speak, in service to life. Depends on what people value. And the first time I came around that was, there's a big corporation and you ask the board, so what are the values of this corporation? And the board's like, the. So a lot of the actions are not even aligned with the values. And same for me as a human. It's like, if I'm doing something, am I really putting energy, effort towards what I really believe in, or am I just speaking some beautiful narrative? So there can be some room for HSC to bring the alignment with people's value, and that should be part of the undivided profile. So I went in quite a few directions. I'm throwing it out there, see how it all weaves together.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. It's fascinating. And I was taking notes. Where did my notes go? Anyways, yeah, thank you. Right, there's, again, just like with Paul, right? There's so much there. There's so much that you're talking about, and I think this is right. These are just these key pieces. And I mean, I like hearing what you both are saying, because it's telling me, okay, we're on the right track here with bringing all of this in, and bringing this in as something that is core and key to to the economy, right? To whatever it is that is being created here. We need to have it move through this filter, or filter is not the right word. Yeah, move through this kind of guiding principle and idea, and co-create it together. Yeah, and it's fascinating, right? The idea of like, how much do folks share? How much do they not? It is really fascinating, because yesterday there was an interesting, the meeting, we came in and Christine presented and I presented some, and we were just like, yes, whole person, bring all ourselves, authenticity. And we got into a pretty deep, discussion around that. And there was, some energy saying like, hey, people might not feel comfortable, being so vulnerable. People might come in and not feel comfortable at that level of sharing. And so, and so, yeah, it's a really interesting question of how do we facilitate that? How do we make it a comfortable and safe enough space, for people to come in who, right? I'm from a health and wellness background, right? So it's really easy for me to just drop into anywhere and be like, hey, these are all, this is all my issues and my life stuff, and share that. But that might not be the case for everybody. But at the same time, we really want to open that up. And I think getting to that level of what Paul's talking about, right? With like that level, that deep level of intimacy, right? And then that creates a deep level of trust as well. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. I'm just, pointing to that as a piece of, continued exploration, and how do we facilitate that? So, yeah, thank you, Tim. Justin or Tony, feel inspired to jump in. Oh, and one more thing I want to say is that there's, what you're seeing now on the member portal is right, is this MVP version. So that's actually an exercise that I'd love for us to do if we have time towards the end, is to bring in like, what are ideas, what are more pieces that we want to have shared in the member portal, right? So like, what are these specific fields? And that's, something where we have, kind of a growing list of what people would like to add and share. So, yeah,
I've
Justin or
added the
Tony?
link. I've added the link in the chat around vulnerability, openness, and uncovering everything, and by extension on boundaries. And yeah, what is a healthy boundary and should we be fully open? So I really, really recommend that podcast.
Beautiful. Thank you. Justin, were you? Yeah.
Yeah, I can go next. Hey Tim, hey Paul, hey Tony, hey Rob. Yeah, my name's Justin Joseph Taylor. I met you all, I think, at the session last week. I'm currently in Columbia, South Carolina, in the United States. I'm 22% Irish, so I'm really appreciating the connection to my ancestry that I don't often have, and so just filling the depth and the roots there. Um, Also born on St. Patrick's Day, although I heard he's not actually Irish. But it's a whole thing that's there too. It's just not for here, not for now, probably. But I came to HSC through meeting Rob. I took part in the regenerative crypto movement called Seeds. We also met Paul, and really got into helping to facilitate the human aspect of kind of decentralized organizing, which oftentimes is not decentralized. It's a process to be able to get to a place of decentralizing. So, kind of helping people to claim their own power and authority, recognize how to talk about their skill sets, learn how to communicate and establish governance structures or different funding mechanisms to be able to look at multiple capital contribution and counting. So how do I take account for not only your time, but also maybe financial investment, but also the things that you create, make sure it has right ownership, that this kind of thought processes, and also help people to kind of overcome all the healing that's required to really step into regenerative movements. A lot of times you have to let go of a lot, and a lot of that trauma has to find its place while also not getting in the way of doing work together, or be a part of the work. So it's quite a human endeavor to do, and I spent some time helping to facilitate those kind of journeys and those kind of organizations coming together. And also when they fall apart too, I've helped to facilitate the endings of good things too in very right ways, which has been also really beautiful. Yeah, currently I've been jamming with Rob a little bit in preparation for that launch party, but also we've been exploring just how do you get some more like, you know, um how do we do just normal projects, like WordPress cleanup and plug in, just kind of doing some of the basic back end work or problem solving, technical problem solving that we both have skills around, while building up a momentum and also trust and capacity to be able to take on bigger things. And so I think I'm here today to listen, which I am, to learn why people are here and what they're interested in. But also, I'm trying to keep a little bit of a finger on the pulse of the things that I've learned when watching cooperatives try to come together and seeing if I can help to support, not falling into any common pitfalls along the way, right? Where there is the chance to bring the whole human, where people can figure out what that means together in a way that doesn't necessarily distract from getting work done, but also we can look at how we want to think about money differently, but also still allow maybe money to flow in a healthy way. How can we actually, there's all these little things that come as tensions, and I think I'm just here to kind of listen and see if I can help to ease or facilitate any of that in the right way. Yeah, I don't see anything else. I'm good with AI tools. I have a little bit of I'm not like a coder or an engineer, but I can do a little back end work when I need to. I'm very operational, so I like to establish systems and find ways to make them work. I'm also really into program design. So designing programs for like learning journeys is what I call them, but it's pretty much just like learning experience design or service design as a set of skills too. And I have a lot of opinions. So if you want to hear someone give some, they're backed by something most of the time, but they're very strong. So I'm always happy to offer that as like a consultation or as just a discerning mind too. That's just an offer I put on the table. Maybe I'll add it to the vouchers when we get there in the next few weeks. That's me.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Yeah, appreciate that. And I appreciate you keeping keeping your hand on the pulse, because I know, yeah, that you do have plenty of experience in organizations and projects like this. Yeah, and so that's right. I think that's a big part of it is, creating what we're wanting to create, but also right? Being able to have folks, with experience say, hey, there's, right, there's this bump in the road that I see coming, or there's this, pitfall that we might want to try and avoid. Yeah, beautiful. Tony, would you like to share a brief intro and your thoughts on this particular topic?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. Brief intro. Okay, I'm a retired auto factory worker. I spent 40 years in the manufacturing division of General Motors. I retired about 20 years ago. So that gives you why I got all this gray hair. But I want to talk about three concepts, if I may, that and try to do it in three short stories. I mentioned to my mother-in-law once, boy, Mom, I love those roses you've got out there in the front yard. Yeah, they're just beautiful. And I just made a comment. A week later, a pickup truck pulled up the driveway at the garden supply company, and they delivered a dozen rose bushes, baby ones. I said, "What are you doing, Mom, with all these roses?" She said, "They're for you." Oh, okay. I didn't know, she said, "Well, you said you liked roses, So the point of that happened, I actually planted the damn things, and they all died because I don't know how to take care of roses. I don't have a green thumb, and I didn't want to be a rose gardener. But she was loving me and looking out for me and wanted to help me to such an extent that it became a negative. It wasn't a good thing. So that's one story. Be careful about helping people can be a problem. They're not helping them to be empowered. You're keeping them unempowered because you're helping too strong. The other story was in the factory in assembly lines, many assembly lines under one roof. Wasn't a car assembly line, it was parts assembly lines. And when the whistle blew at the start of the shift, you better have your gloves on, your apron on, and be ready to go to work. But by contract, as Paul mentioned, you're a slave to the corporation. And I had a situation where I went into logistics, which is the warehouse, and we didn't have any assembly line work. At the beginning of the shift, instead of when the whistle blew, that's when the supervisor talked to each individual in the warehouse, and they negotiated their work output, their put in and their take out of shelving, what the quota would be for the day, so that the person had agency. It was so strong of culture of agency that we worked an hour, we took off an hour. We worked an hour, we took off an hour. So during an 8-hour shift, we only worked 4 hours. The culture of agency, the collective agency was so strong that we talked about at break time, if we wanted to work a time and a half for Saturday, and what we would do to create a bottleneck or a problem that demanded the corporation then hire us for time and a half Saturdays and double time Sundays. The agency. I learned later in my life on the union that there were UAW plants where the agency was the collective agency was so strong that when an individual made his quota in rate for the day, they left the building, they rang out because we were ringing in and out on the clock, would go home after 3 or 4 hours because they made the quota, but they got paid for 8. I want to bring out a point here that is often pushed, that businesses move are anti-union and move plants to lower labor costs because of economics. The truth is, it's because of agency, because over time, the collective consciousness, and this gets to what the wholeness that Paul was talking about. I became a bargainer. I ran for office, and I had 3 locations in my responsibility where the departments, the men and women in that assembly department ran the department. Their collective agency was so strong. And it happens over a long period of time, that the solidarity, the wholeness, the consciousness of whole becomes real. And I think we don't appreciate that in our culture. We don't really try to study how to onboard and create that. So it's one of my, I don't know what, interesting pursuits is how do you do agency? How do you develop collective agency? How do you do onboarding? David Bohm, who's a physicist, worked with Einstein on nuclear physics, had a hobby. His hobby was studying collective agency, studying, he called the whole, the consciousness of wholeness of people. And it's the only place that I ever found where independent theory and practice was pursued to understand collective agency. Now that leads to that's my 3 stories, and my last story is the 4th one. I'm sorry, I've just thought of it while I'm talking, is that I think the right guidelines, the right norms of behavior, the rules of engagement, you have to be careful that you don't, help so much as you disempower people. So it's very difficult to find values and principles and to have a discussion about them, knowing that where we're going here is to create collective agency. That's the challenge. And the reason why I'm here is because I get a lot of emails, invites, groups trying to develop goals and processes. So it's just not a very scientific survey, but Holistic Systems Cooperative really triggered my curiosity. This is a place, I think, where we can do that kind of work. I'm happy to be here, and we'll see how it goes. That's all I have to say. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tony. Beautiful, much appreciated. Yeah, I know, and I just want to reflect what you're saying, right? And that it did, really connect with what Paul was talking about as well, and just rename what you're saying, this collective consciousness, this collective agency, and Paul was speaking to, right, the whole person of the group, right, the whole platform, and I think that feels to me like this similar idea. So it's like we're coming in as our individual selves. Of course, now I'm thinking about that word and how I'm using it, but coming in, but then as a group, right, we're creating something that's that's collective, and that is the more than the sum of all of us. And so yeah, I do that. There has been a lot of discussion and ideas on how we, and technically, right, how we can look at that. But there's also, right, just this idea of what we're talking about, which I think, at its key, right, is the culture, So what kind of culture are we creating? So what kind of culture are we creating right now? What, as we start, I mean, I do think that that's, yeah, been part of the design from the beginning, right? Is we need to connect the economic mechanisms and the tool and imbue it with this particular culture, or else, right, we're probably not going to be creating, what we really want to and what we're envisioning, and something that's really transformative. So yeah, thank you. Beautiful words. Paul, you had something to share, please?
Yeah, I want to honor you, Tony, bringing in David Bohm's work. I've been studying Bohm's work since 2010, and I think there are two things which really apply, I think, to what we're talking about. So I'm looking for permission to fold in again. So beneath Bohm's idea of the explicate order, the things that we see, and in this context, it's the services that we'll trade, yeah, is the implicate order where everything already is. And Tony mentioned that Bohm worked with Einstein, and Bohm had the audacity to say to Einstein and to Niels Bohr, "You've left something out. You have left consciousness out of the equation." And of course, as mathematicians, that's how they start their equations. Well, assuming a consciousness doesn't exist, this math will work. So I think that feels really important, the implicate order of what's being created within the HSC platform. That's the first thing. So there's something bigger going on for which we are being used. So all of our experience from Canada, from Justin's 22% native Irishness, all of us here and the others, we're being part of something that is being applied as a whole. So there's something about that as well. And one of the things that Bohm, BOHM, was talking about was the necessary for coherence. He said if you start with an incoherent thought, everything afterwards will be incoherent. And so I think one of the things that I'm here for is to find a level of coherence from which coherence can emanate. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just jotting down that last thing you said as a note. Beautiful. I can't multitask, so I cannot type notes and speak at the same time. That is, yeah, it's not a gift or ability that I have. So, yeah,
Can I
thank
pick
you.
up on a point that Paul's talking about?
Yeah, please, of course.
The implicate, I don't really understand the nuances and depth of that, but what does occur, let me think, is there's a sort of a serendipity story. My project has in the title of I'm professional in professional work as the term watershed. And the watershed is inanimate, animate, physical, organic life in bioecological diversity to the max. It could be bad or good depending upon so many contextual situations, but nonetheless, it's this huge environment. And why I love it so much in the title of my work, it allows me to say that we are in this order, this culture, this reality, this perception, the language that we use, the ways we act, and we're moving in through with it. Is that what an implicate order is, Paul? I don't know if that's what is when if we were to raise our awareness to name and address all of the influences, the social, psychological, cultural matrix of influences and connections. What do you call that? That is what we're dealing with and how we're being affected and how we affect our development and change, our relationship to those sources and forces and energies all around us. So, in other words, I guess what I'm saying is it's not only that we achieve a collective consciousness, we are in and part of a collective consciousness that we are unaware of. I don't know I never followed Brome enough to understand implicate and expletive. I don't know what those words mean, but I do feel that it sort of has to get, to this concept that we're already in an environment. Not the problem, but the capitalist system and the domination of transactions and greed and power is to move us away from recognizing that collective wholeness. And I don't know where to go next, except that I think, just naming and understanding is a step in learning how to deal with that. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated. We are in this collective consciousness already. And so I think that's bringing in, like, to me, this question that's popping in, right? As I'm hearing everything. Oh, cool. Thanks, Paul, for dropping that in. Right. Yeah. So all of this talk and all this discussion, right? I love it. It's pumping me up, right? It doesn't take, too much to do that, but this is exactly the kind of thing that does, right? And so it's like, right, this question then for me, right, whenever I'm in this, then the question for me that always comes in, and this is the question that, I'm bringing into the world and then bringing into this group, right, is how do we actually, like, create and manifest this thing that we're talking about in our current present time reality? How do we bring it into being? How do we manifest it? So that's the question that always, that stems from me from what we're talking about, right? How do we bring in this collective, this entity that's going to, be able to collectively shift our consciousness, our collective consciousness from where it is, from what Tim said, right? How can the economy be different? How can we find employment that aligns with our values? How can we, shift how we find work, right, from Fiverr to something different? And so, yeah, so that's really that's number one, kind of the offering of holistic systems. Is how can we bring it, manifest it and facilitate it? But it's also the question for us as a group, right? So I need to put that, that as a working question for us, because, it won't, like, I'm working as hard as I can, and I know everybody here is. I'm working as hard as I can on it, but I know also that HSC, it won't work if it's just me. It won't work in this kind of paradigm, right? There's this entrepreneurial paradigm, right? Which is like, okay, I'm going to be the founder and the entrepreneur, and I'm going to, work and, build this thing up, and then, it's going to be successful. And then, I'm going to, I have all the ownership in it, and right. And I'm going to reap all the benefits, but I'm going to kill myself doing it before I do. And
you're bringing that's the pickup truck of roses. Be careful.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that pitfall is one that I've seen, that has always kind of been seen, right? So, What I know is that, yeah, is that this thing, if we want to manifest it and bring it into being, it needs to be a collective effort. Yeah, it isn't just, Rob or Rob and Christine or whoever else is here, right? It is a collective effort. And so that is a question that I really want to just bring into the group. Doesn't need like an answer now, but for all of us to sit with, right? And I know we're all doing it, right? And we're like, that's one thing I know, like everybody here is doing that. And whether it comes through manifest through HSC or through other projects, that I think is fine by me. So, but this is a particular way that we're saying, hey, like this is a way for us to give it a shot. So, as we go along, I'd love for and anybody who wants to participate to please continue to do so at at the level that makes sense to you. And if this is continues to speak to you as we go along, then can think about how we can do it together. So with that big speech, I can kind of bring us into to take a look at the platform a little bit, but I also want to open up and make sure that there if anybody else had any comments before we do that.
Just one more thing. I'm a great believer in synchronicity, and something's just come up on my phone that says authenticity has a higher frequency than love. Uh, hmm.
Mm.
I think it's on the Hawkins scale that they're talking about, so I'll check it out later on. But this is, I think, the ultimate essence of whatever the technology ends up doing. I think the invitation is that the technology, uh, in fact, the currency of the technology has to be authenticity.
Mm.
Yeah, I want to
Mm.
piggyback and underscore what Paul just said. And it has to do with the invitation. The begging question is, how do you get that collaboration? That's how do I start this? In union meetings are managed with parliamentary procedure. So making motions, you have to have a second. And then you have to have a discussion, and then you have to have a vote. So you got to get a lot of authenticity to get hard-headed people to move along to take action or to make a collective decision at the union hall on a Sunday afternoon. But that's always that. If you can use a different set of nouns and verbs, if you're doing community organizing, you invite people to come to a project or to a group. And what we're doing here is basically we're setting up this outreach, this invitation to participate, but getting the authenticity is the key, the engagement, the commitment to belong and work and collaborate. That's the hard thing. And so, yeah, I'm sort of curious how, we do this, because the behavioral changes that we want to get to achieve to create this wholeness of mutual aid, mutual support, to use some tried and true terms, comes about through dialogue, as Bohm talked about, comes about through conversation, debate, analysis, exchanging nouns and verbs and questions and realities. So I think we're ready I want to see this app. I want to see how this thing is setting up the invitation, setting up the opening for dialogue. Very curious.
Yeah, great. So thank you. Well, let's take a look. I'll share my screen. So Tony, I put in the chat, the Zoom chat, I put in the link to, that's the link to get to the app, but it's also the link, it's to join, to sign in. So this is what the app, looks like. Yeah, so I know that everyone on this call, Tony, except for you, has joined the app. So if you can go and do that now, or you can just kind of like look here, and if you need help, I'm happy to help with some onboarding. Basically, yeah, Tony, you just go there, you enter your email, you'll get a PIN, you put that in, and then there's going to be an intake form that'll just guide you through it. So then we're going to end up here. So really, as far as like the app, the functionality, in this regards, for this whole person profile, right now it's still fairly simple. I did yesterday very quickly put in, here's Marianne's, right? So this is like the front end, right? So this is the member profile. And the idea here is that, right, is that it's going to have all the different information that we need and we want to put in, right? So to create this thing that we're talking about, what are the pieces that people can share about themselves? Right, we have your regular kind of contact and bio information. There's right the ways that that person wants to collaborate. We have professional skill sets. So part of the design here is that a person can get like bring in their skill sets, but bring in other aspects than just like, this is my skill set. And a couple of pieces that I think are interesting are the expertise level, I think is really helpful. So it's a way to say, hey, I might like be a full-on expert at operations and resource management, but my desire to do it is really low. But I might, not be an expert at all in workflow optimization, but I really want to do that, right? So these are just ways, like signals that we can share to, help support each other, right? So soft skills is another one that really is about professional, skill sets, but also getting more into the whole person, right? Goals and challenges. I added these in yesterday. So there's so much that we can add in here, right? So these are like questions that start to speak to who this person is on deeper levels, right? Creating more of this authenticity, but also being ways for us to continue to develop, and have others be able to help us develop, right? So these are just questions. What are you naturally good at? What do you intrinsically enjoy? I'll show you how to fill them out, right? So I did this quickly yesterday. That's why it's kind of presented in this big kind of ugly way, or at least ugly to me. I want to like present things a little more beautifully, but it's a process. And then the last part of the profiles, right, has to do more with the value, the exchange pieces, right, which is needs and offerings, vouchers, and then at the top, contribution tokens. So as far as the logistics, I'll go to my user profile. So this is kind of the front end. If I click here, right, so this is the front end of mine, right? So I can see what my profile looks like, and all the information here. And then if I click edit, or I can always go to my little face in the circle here and click view profile, and then I'm going to end up here. And this is where I call it the control panel, because it's where you can do everything. It's where you can edit, add all your information. and edit and see, you know, all of your particular, um, you know, needs and offerings and exchange items, right? So if I, this is, you know, my regular kind of more standard contact info. Each of these is going to be, you know, buttons to add or edit. So this is just, you know, a form. You can always change this, you know, these things and edit them at any time. And then, you know, speaking, oh, so this is like skills and expertise. Oh, I need to kind of put this somewhere else. So you know, when you're in here, you can edit, right? So I can actually edit my expertise level. I can add in details. So this is something where, you know, like, you know, like brand strategy, I might, you know, add in special details, you know, like align brand with business objectives. And, you know, this will all get more filled out. You can also remove skills if you decide you don't want it on your profile anymore. Right. These are those questions that we asked. Right? What are your aptitudes? What are your growth edges? You know, what fears and attachments keep me from fully living the path that I know is right for me? So as you know, hopefully, you know, as far as like the logistics of doing this and filling them out, hopefully it's fairly simple. But that's kind of how it works. Yeah, let's see. Oh yeah, so this is your skills, your whole person area, right? Your collaboration interests, goals and challenges, and these new questions that I brought in. So yeah, I don't know that I need to go through it like so much anymore. I think the idea here to, you know, other than just to kind of show you, and I'm happy to answer any questions as far as how the app works, but also to really bring our discussion into you know, the app, which is the way for us to start to facilitate all of this. So, you know, the question and what I do want to, you know, the final kind of piece I would love to ask and talk about and hear ideas on is what, you know, like what pieces of information would be valuable to have in this like whole person profile? What pieces, and Tony, I will get to you in one moment. Because we can fill this out, you know, in whatever ways make sense. And, you know, hopefully as we go along, right, the tech and the ability to synthesize this information and the ability to, right, this dashboard it needs a lot of work, but the ability to then show this information and be able to help create, you know, matches with people, it should be able to grow and mature and develop. Thank you for that. So I saw two hands that are now gone, but Tony, if I saw your hand and I saw Justin's hand.
Yeah, so there's this, well, very ethical, undefined, but loving approach to the members as, you know, complicated, special people. But my experience with people is that unexpected things, bumps in the road, disagreements, emotions are going to occur. And so this begs the question, how do we do conflict resolution? In the shop, we have a grievance procedure. We have certain guidelines from management for work behavior, and we have certain guidelines from the union hall constitution for democratic participation and conflict resolution on through both organizational entities. So my question is there a structure, processes and goals regarding respect for differences, for grievances, for conflict? Question mark.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The answer is yes. Yes, there is. That has been part of the development because the point you're speaking to is, is so important. And so that's been part of the development of the, essentially what our community agreements are. And so, there's ways where it needs to be, flushed out more, but we have a start of that. It also, on the app now, we have the start of these member agreements, and we have this library now. But there's definitely more refining of that needs to happen, and we need to put it up on that library, and it's been developing also in this way of like that needs to develop more. In actuality, as more people start to come in, and the group gets more robust. So we didn't want to like spend, so much time on it, if there's really a small group of people that are able to kind of, self manage. So it's part of that growing process.
I would make a point. There is a real case study where a worker co-op, everybody was an owner, everybody shared in the profit. There was collective decision-making on how to split the revenue for strategic long-range investment and planning and product development, and also how to use revenue for individual wages and salaries and individual education to share the blessings, so to speak. Yet they went on strike. There was a caucus in the collective that was opposed to the way the operation was running, and they went on strike. And the question, how the hell can you're the owner, have such a strong disagreement with the operation? You're not going to work. You're going to create this chaotic, stop working, put your tools down. So what happened was then there was the meeting of the organizers and leaders, how to address this inherent structural weakness. So the co-op was set up to elect the leadership of the co-op. They then turned around and created another committee to elect a social committee that addressed the social concerns of the collective. And so there was, I think, trying, 3 years to make long-term strategic tactical decisions about revenue. The two committees would meet every 3 years, basically to design operations and a contract amongst themselves to how to operate the co-op. So it was like the union meeting, although our union met with the corporation every 4 years. So you have this checks and balances, this accountability built in, this respect for human failure and human diversity and human creativity built in to counter the mission and the goal of the co-op. So the big question is, you talked about, you're thinking, you want to do analysis and practice and theory. And so I'm just trying to diplomatically nudge this effort to have it in place with a little more stronger practice.
Oh, no, sorry, one second. I'm doing that typing thing again. So I just put a Miro, there's an info board, that's a Miro board and has our, our current like organizational structure map. So, Tony, essentially I would agree with you 100%. And it's really just, like how fast, these things get implemented in practice is really to me a matter of resources. So it's a matter of, how, how much per person and time resources we have to bring that in. To me, I do think that it wants to be a continuous process. I don't think that we
Yeah,
want to like move forward with economic stuff and leave behind governance and ownership, and what those models are and structures, and then have those catch up. I do agree that they all want to walk hand in hand together. So
right.
um,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, Paul, your hand was up, please.
I really want to honor Tony and your eldership of knowing what actually goes on in organizations. So it's a real blessing to be in HSC with you. Thank you for all of the wisdom that you're bringing. Um, you were asking earlier on, so this is a handle from earlier on, Rob. What do you think is missing? And I think Hendrik pointed to it in the session that I was in earlier on. There doesn't seem to be a grand plan which everybody is working on together. So in Tony's context, everybody's making cars, yeah. Um, and in the context of what I'm seeing going on, and if I'm wrong, please pick me up. What I'm seeing is we are going to test the platform. We're going to put in a commitment pool voucher. Somebody can offer a massage, and somebody can offer a carrot, and somebody can offer an apple, and we'll see how that goes on. But what are we building together? I mean, are we building HSC together? And if that's it, well then that's clear. So what is the grand plan for the I don't know, and I don't know how many people are involved. What is the grand plan for this X number of people together convening even for April? By the end of April, you said it's a kind of a test. What will we have convened together? So that's what I'm just curious about.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so I put this is we so we have been developing a mission, vision, and purpose, right? And it has been co-created and co-developed over the course of the last 3.5 years. I just dropped a link in the chat. It is for some reason it's absent from our website, just because, again, like doing lots of stuff. So that's really important to get up there. I think that would be my first answer to that question. Is really yeah, that mission, vision, and purpose, and you can I think access it on that link, and that can evolve. But to me, that's the grand plan. And totally, Hendrik's point was perfect, and your point is perfect. So completely agree with you on that. And yeah, that's where I would start. Justin.
I'm also appreciating the wisdom on the call, and I think that, yeah, I think your question, Rob, a little earlier was like around the nature of what's on the profile, or what's missing, or how could they best be used, or how would it be more whole, the whole person, I guess, at some level. And yeah, what I noticed for myself is like, uh, and maybe pointing at some other points too, like, I noticed this is kind of a maybe who I am is somewhat context dependent. And so the context by which I would build a profile does matter. Like my whole personness is magnitudes, and it's probably never gonna be captured in an app. And also something that's not going to necessarily be defined by my soft skills or my hard skills, or the work I accomplish. I think there's something much more to that. And so I think, I wonder, like, what is the purpose of this particular profile, which I imagine would be kind of multifold, but one is like for me to be able to express something about who I am in a way that's concrete, for people to be able to find me and figure out if I'm a right collaborator for projects they have going on, and also for me to help for people to be able to find ways to transact with me if we feel like we have mutually exchangeable services. I know that's it's probably more to that than that, but I think that's some things that I notice. Maybe also it's meant to support in developing some type of um, implicit trust in the person you're working with because you know a little bit more about who they are. Um, and so, and I think some of the things that I'm hearing at other points, like, and then you have the actual interactions, you have these community calls, you have the projects you take on, and all that's actually where you actually get to see more of the whole being or the whole person that's there, outside of just their profiling. So there's just some like initial thoughts around dealing with whole person as a context, what the profile may be in that, and how it transacts or interacts on the app. Can I add one more thing? Is that cool? Or is it like should I pause there?
No, please. I would say go ahead.
Yeah, I think for myself on my own journey, I've done a lot of those kind of personal profiling tools, and I've used that to help to translate and speak to different parts of myself that are hard to name sometimes. So that could be something as simple as like a Myers-Briggs, and as a very direct offer, like I love 16 Personalities has a great free Myers-Briggs test, and I've purchased the entire library of Myers-Briggs profiles. And so, if that's something that you wanted to integrate into the HSC profiles, we could do a little something where people can take the test, put their name on there, and then you can add a little content for them to be able to see more about who they are, how they work together, their workplace challenges, right? So you have a bunch of advocates, but you have no doer, whatever bunch of at the top, the pragmatists. You have like the analysts, right? So it's good to know who maybe you're building a team with. And the Myers Briggs is not perfect, and it's still just a personality assessment, but sometimes it's actually helps with some self-referencing, but also it has innate capacities to be able to watch at compatibility. The other systems I use are things like the gene keys and human design systems, and those two also offer really strong profiling tools. And again, I think part of what I noticed is like, you have like your, you know, I guess like one potential value proposition people would come is, yeah, can I name myself in the right way? But also something that may be attractive people is being able to have support in structuring and naming what they do and who they are in a way maybe they don't know how to just yet. I noticed that a lot of people who come into these contexts have already they've stepped out of some kind of mainstream world and are now kind of on a different way. And some of that workplace trauma or burnout, or kind of paradigmatic limbo can also be really challenging to know how to name or communicate what you do and in what ways. And so I think, something that HSC may be able to offer is that kind of, yeah, safe place, whole being, but actually, even if you don't know exactly who that is, maybe some of the analysis or profiles our profile can help you define that. And I think, maybe like less is more, but also something whole feels true too. So if it's so many skills and so many opportunities that I'm overwhelmed, that's hard to navigate. That's like it's like an abundance, but maybe holism and abundance may be different things, right? Where I could have just the right amount of something to feel complete without being overburdened or overwhelmed by all the possibilities. I think that's something that may just something over time we can hone in on, or that can be defined in that profiling, especially with the skills.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're speaking to some of the, kind of favorites for me there, which is right when you're talking about like Myers-Briggs and, human design, gene keys, some of these favorites for me is like, how do I work and how, what are my natural kind of gifts and abilities and what are these natural places where I may, have speed bumps, and then, how can we use that to find great, collaborations. So those are a lot of great ideas. And yeah. Thank you for that. So yeah, Tony, want to get to you. I'm noticing the time now. These meetings are 90 minutes. They're scheduled for 90 minutes, but then there's a half hour. At the regular community meetings, we say there's a half hour for kind of co-working at the end. So, I will be here and stick around for another half hour after this, but I also want to make sure to, look at the time and make sure that, at 90 minutes, we're saying, hey, the proper meeting is closing. So Tony, yeah, if you, happy to hear what you have to say, and then I'll do kind of the official meeting close up, and then we can go from there. Yeah, Tony, please.
Real quick, Justin brings up great points, and I, my way of conceptualizing what Justin was talking about is that the reality that I live in, I have my family roles, work, identity, and then I have an economic me that I have to pay the bills and have revenue. So these entities that we're creating online, doing this transition to a new culture, has a foot in love, comma, joy, intimacy, and another foot in, the money-based capitalist economy. And so just to close this out is that we're not talking about only transactional exchanges. We're talking about gifting. We're talking about love exchanges. We're talking about, because this is important when I do the dishes for the well-being of the family, as it is important when I earn some money to pay the bills at home. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so to wrap up, I mean, I think that the main thing that's coming to me to say is just is like a deep bow. To wrap, just a deep bow to everybody here. Yeah, for what you're bringing, for the efforts that you're making, for the wisdom that you're bringing, right? Like, Tony and Paul, right? I mean, everybody here, there's just a lot of wisdom, right? And isn't that an intangible? That's module 3 is the contribution tokens, right? To me, bringing wisdom is such a massive intangible. And how can we, reward that contribution? Which it's a little different than knowledge or expertise. So anyways, I don't want to go off too much on that, but really appreciating the wisdom, appreciating the questions here. I'm glad we have now AI to go through this meeting and try and sort through it. But I did take good notes. And also just to say, Tony, the point you're making as far as the governance and ownership structures, Paul, the point you're making as far as like this grand plan, I know I did share with you, but I think those are great points. So I do want to say those are to me continually kind of open to discussion, and I think making sure that grand plan is clear is very important. Yeah, as far as logistically wrapping up, Tony, if you want to check in. So I'm just reading what Tim said. Avoiding a pitfall versus building a ladder to get out of the hole. Wisdom's value. Thank you. So as far as like next steps or homework, if you have it. If there's anything in particular that's coming in, like Justin shared, okay, Myers-Briggs or Gene Keys, any particular pieces of information or questions where you say, oh, I think that would be amazing to have, in the platform itself. Feel free to jot those down, to send them to me. And soon we'd like to have a feature in where we can just write these things down in the actual app itself. Tony, if you need help getting on board into the app, you can stick around and we can do that. Yeah, otherwise, I think there's a lot here, and I hope to be able to continue to co-create this with everyone as we go along. Yeah. So that's the time, but I'm happy for everybody to again stick around as you like, but also if folks have checkouts, I'm happy. I'd love to hear those. And of course, we have 3 more onboarding modules. And next week gets into the exchange pieces. Yeah, it's a lot here.
I got a bit more time, so I'm happy to stick around. And also, it's funny that Justin spoke about the Myers-Briggs type indicator because it came at one point early in the call. I just had this MBTI notion that came to me. I'm like, oh, okay, hello again. It's been a while since I heard about MBTI, so yeah, just putting it out there that there might be something there if it comes from multiple perspectives. And also, before I go in, other thoughts, just wanting to see if anyone has to leave and they have final words, checkout words.
I've got to run. Just super grateful to be with you guys, and hopefully I'll see you next week sometime. If you're down the journey. Yeah, appreciate you.
Thanks, Justin.
Nice meeting you, Justin. Yeah, both when you did the presentation last week at Limicon and now, as I'm looking at the platform navigating, there's this feeling that comes of, well, first, I love the project and the intention and the energy and the love behind it. So that's why I'm here. And as I discover the project, there's also the feeling of, oh, what's the direction? And you did share the link about the purpose, vision, and mission, which I'm looking forward to read. But there's, yeah, the feeling of what's the direction, what's the vision? Like Justin said, less is more. So I find myself being a bit lost in the nascent ecosystem of how it is structuring itself, and in other words, beyond my curiosity and love for the energy that's in it, like what's really in it for me, or how do I see that it's going to be valuable to get invested, which I guess is like so many projects that comes from having a desire to see it in the world. But yeah, the the different keywords I wrote were vision, direction, was a minimum viable product. What is the definition of success in the context of, like, how do we know there's enough of a momentum, and what kind of glue is there to hold people through challenges? And oh, I've been working on HSC for 6 months and I'm not really finding the value. Like, how much more am I putting in before being like, okay, ciao? So those are the field pragmatic ideas that are coming to me as I navigate the platform.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Those are such great questions. I think so important, right? And, as I think about, HSC, right, there's so many, different ways, right? In my sort of planning and operational mind, I'm like, there's so many different ways that it's, can kind of go wrong or fizzle out. And in that mind, sort of there seems to be many more sort of possibilities of that happening than it kind of like being, like being successful as far as like, the vision. That's not any reason not to pursue it. But I get that. And I think that the more that we're able to answer these questions, like you talked about, yeah, like what is the definition of success? Beautiful. What's the glue that's holding people together through these challenges? Yeah, why are they staying? So, again, I have thoughts for this, but I don't know that I have like, the answers. And I think, yeah, hopefully, right in that mission, vision, and purpose, statement, there's some. I mean, for me, yeah, maybe it needs to. That's also something that can be helpful, right? Is to more clearly and succinctly define why it is we're here, right? What is the purpose that's pulling all of us together? I do think there's one. I mean, for me, it's really like the purpose is at its base level is how do I make a living and also be cultivating, societal transformation. How do I do that? Right. And then that looks, me personally, how do I align my work with my values, on the larger perspective? How am I creating, systemic change? But that's like, for me, if I had to just name this purpose, it's like, how do I do this? How do I get help in meeting my basic needs, while also, directly participating in societal transformation? So yeah, thank you for those questions. Great to explore.
If I may, just before you go, Paul, can I add one more thing? Cool. Yeah, I think a lot of the value, the glue to me is in this type of call and the quality of people that are drawn to the conversations and to the emergence. So that is really the gathering and the speaking element and the togetherness element is really important from my perspective to the success and to the glue of the community, more than most of the technical uh, aspects of the platform. Having a community of practice of meeting together seems to have a lot more. And that's coming from a web development background as well, and like a technologist perspective of build the product, people welcome. Well, build the space and welcome people in that space, and people will stay and share and be.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. And sounds great, and sounds very much in alignment. Because at the end of the day, right? I mean, I've already met amazing collaborators, right? That now are collaborators on projects and on paid work and things like that, right? And it did come from, right, from being in this space with them. Thank you. Paul.
I'm a Quaker by spiritual practice, and the reason Quakers got their name was when they were giving testimony in front of a judge for not paying their tithes, which is what got them into trouble. They wouldn't pay the church. They were shaking with spiritual fervor. That was the words used, and the judge said they were quaking. That's how they ended up being called Quakers. So right now I am quaking. Okay, I'm shaking with some kind of resonance, frequency, and vibration. And I can't put my finger on it. I just can sense a lot of potential. And um, you said there, if you were to encapsulate it, you want to make a living, meet your basic needs, and change the world. And without pissing on your battery, as they said in South Africa, if I was involved, I'd be turning it around, going to the top of, if you're using Maslow. Maslow said before he died, by the way, he says, "Oh, my pyramid's upside down." He says, "You need to start with self-actualization, then the rest of it will look after itself." So if you are going to aim at making a living and you're completely successful, well, then you'll make a living. If you aim at making basic needs and you're totally successful, that's all you're going to do. So if it was me, I'd be flipping it upside down. So let's change the world of whatever this is, tracking the intangible, bringing in the wisdom of um, all the wisdom keepers here. And earlier on, I put in the chat, collaboration is a limitation because we only co-labor. Do we co-love? Do we co-die? Do we co-live? So again, I'm very careful about the word collaboration. And if you're French and you're called a collaborator, that's not a good thing. because the collaborators worked with the Nazis. You have to be really careful with words.
Mm.
Okay? And what we're doing here lends itself to a commons. Now, this is what I'm busy with at the moment, and there's an inkling of a potential for HSE to be a commons. But it's going to depend on you, Rob, and I'll put in a little story. I saw a cooperative that had put up a set of guidelines for how they operate. A little bit how Tony spoke about how the union operates with its guidelines and being seconded. And what I saw was that the founder of that commons had one golden share for himself, which was valued at 13 years' work. And I said, this is not a commons. If anything, it's a dictatorship. It might be benefactorial, but there's only one share and it's for that founder and he can value it whatever he likes. So I'm curious about what is the legal structure for this. If everybody puts in 6 months value, a bit like Tim is saying, I can produce a website and I give it to HSC and I'll give it the URLs and you guys host it, and then he's ghosted. So how does all of that work? So I'm here for the month to explore all of this in my quaking, and I'm grateful for the time and space. Thank you all so much.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Right. What is the organizational and legal structure? Some of that I feel grateful for to have hooked up with another cooperative called Roots Cooperative and come together. This was Paul how I was sharing a little bit yesterday to create Circle Trust, which is the builder of the platform that other communities can jump into. And part of that is part of the feature, right, which is kind of the feature of this HSC platform, the feature of the Circle Trust is also bringing in the ownership, governance, and legal wrappers, right? So bringing in those models and a way to facilitate those. So I don't have it all figured out, but that's very important. And yeah, just to name, right, how it works, like it really does need to be, it is designed and needs to be a co-owned and cooperative entity, and is never designed for me to have a share, have a, it really the contributions. Yeah, we could get into a whole discussion about how that logistically, and technically works. So I'm happy to do that. I don't have it all figured out, but the idea is that this is really, an offering. It's not meant to be something that is, that I'm meant to have some large equity claim that I have into perpetuity. That doesn't actually sound very fun to me. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this, right? And just to name, I mean, I think I'm being clear on this. Like we've done a lot of work, A, and B, hopefully I'm being clear on this. Like I don't have it all figured out. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. You're not even a benevolent dictator. That's a good sign. Yeah, Paul mentioned collab. I think the other end of that word is, instead of collab, be co-learning, co-developing, co-creating. And I want to mention Paul Bernstein, which I don't know if he's even still alive. I think possibly 30 years ago, I read a book about workplace democracy by Paul. And there's 5, he did a huge study of the worker co-ops in the 40s and 50s. And there were 5 features, elements that needed to be, actualized, implemented, and worked on for success. And if one of them was weak, still the co-op could be successful, and his determination of success was, revenue and all of that. But there was one element out of the five that if the co-op was weak on this one element, guaranteed it would not succeed. And that was the founder and convener was of a democratic educational teacher kind of role person. They were good listeners, they were teachers, they were co-creators, co-enabling in what they did to help the operation succeed. Just to speak to that issue on the other side of the coin, I read another thing about corporate CEOs. They have another profile of personality traits, which is they're bullies. They are about me. They're about power. So it's a total different kind of personality profile. Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, I have a good feeling about who I am. I've done a lot of self work and to feel like I know who I am and always need to be checking myself, as everyone else. I mean, I think it might be good for me to show. Also, Paul, thank you for mentioning that turnaround, on my statement of of purpose. It's very interesting. I think it might be interesting just to show, like, okay, at a certain point, if we continue on, this is just, this is a holonic, organizational structure chart, a horizontal structure. So, one of the things I do like about where we're at these days is we have, right, there are like so many great frameworks that are already created, right? There's sociocracy and holacracy and teal organizations and all, right? Like, so what I like about that is we don't have to actually like come up with that. Okay. So we're creating this like, novel economic systems. All right. So we're really, working and digging deep on that, but don't have to create all the other sort of ownership structures and different governance models. We can, use what's here. I think that as we go along, again, this is this first month, and let's see what we co-develop and what comes out of it together. Right now, this is our structure. So these are all the circles and roles. So I think as we go along, when people want to participate, hopefully they'll come in and people can start to fill some of these roles, even if it's in small amounts, right? So some of it is, right, we have like the anchor, the strategy circle, we have like the governance and organizational structure. So this is a circle that can be whatever, one or two people or five or however many that are working on implementing these particular frameworks that we're talking about. So, and somebody might be more interested in like the community management part. So they might want to come and occupy this role. Or I'd love to have people join in on the value exchange and being community, like curators. Or of course, what would could also be helpful as we go along is folks that can help with the actual building out of the member portal, the app itself. So again, this is not something that I'm sort of bringing in and trying to flash at everybody right away and be like, hey, come on and occupy these roles. But because we're having this conversation, I wanted to share this to sort of say this is the where some of this kind of co-creation, like right now, our organizational structure that would hopefully hold that. And I shared this link earlier, but I'll share it in the chat. This is just, you know, a general info board. And oh, you put something into the chat. I'm just gonna thank you for that. I'm gonna copy that and put it in our notes document.
Oh, that's Tony's reference. That's what Paul Bernstein was writing about in '76, and again, I want to honor the wisdom. AI would never have been able to remember Paul Bernstein. It was Tony who remembered.
Hmm.
Thank you, Paul. I'm glad
Yeah.
that I have a fact checker around here. That's good.
Beautiful. Yeah, I put that in the notes. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. Well, if yeah, so how are folks feeling about I mean, I'm just delighted to be here with you all. Yeah, delighted, grateful. You know, enthused. Also, you know, there's always this aspect for me of like, well, there's all, you know, so there's a lot to do, but all of that can be held. You know, I'm excited for the you know the modules and continuing to hopefully, you know, fill out the member portal. Yeah, what are people thinking as far as, you know, proceeding from here?
Well, okay, I'll make a comment. You know, we hear this criticism of organizational projects and goals and entities that they operate in silos. So the problem is the connecting of the silos, the problem of learning from one another. The problem is, you know, always, you know, I don't know how to put it, you know, making the same mistake, being closed-minded, even organizationally. You got your act together, but that the change is, you know, is an imperative. Change is real. Development is real. So I don't know much about Agile or Scrum, but there's this iterative process of coping and problem solving and organizational development that's built into the practice of the entity. And so that's needs to be, you know, recognized, I think, in HSC, that there's some way to deal with not being in a silo, learning from one another, exchanging not only individually, internally, but exchanging with other co-ops, researching, having a research component in the operation. How am I doing? Am I making any sense?
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Okay.
1,000,000%. Yeah, yeah. Even within, right, like HSC doesn't want to be its own silo.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's yeah, not the idea at all. Right. The idea is for HSC to be in a part of a larger ecosystem. You know, so part of the design is a part of a you know, a network that's exchanging in these particular ways, but also even beyond that. Right, part of the larger ecosystem and collaborating with other projects and learning, and that's been a big part of the, you know, this continues to be a big part of the process for me. And
so all of these things are subject to change. See, all the things we talk about.
yeah, it's also it's certainly all subject to change, but I think that there's, you know, there's some of this, a lot of the what we talked about today, these guiding values and principles and culture, right? I don't know that's how we facilitate that is certainly subject to change. I think those, these core pieces that we're talking about, whole person, authenticity, all of that, holds everything else in place. Mm.
I've just done an analysis of Paul Bernstein's work with Eleanor Ostrom,
Oh my God.
and some really interesting stuff coming up there. So I don't know where to put it.
Oh, well, you can drop it in this document for now if you'd like. That the top right, those are the meeting notes document, and so that's somewhere where you can just drop it in the bottom of today's if you want. And again, part of the app and the design, right, is this, which is implemented now in the basic way, is this library, right? This resource library that's this shared knowledge base. It's like a community journal. It has different purposes, for us to put all this information. And that'll be an evolving process, I'm sure, of how that works. But that's the idea of part of the pool. What are things that we can pool together? And part of that is, our knowledge and resources and templates and things of this nature. It just has to be organized well.
I couldn't read, I don't, you showed us those circles and things. I can't, the screen is hard for me to read the words and get a sense of it. But what comes to mind is it's a fascinating concept. The Occupy movement used an organizational structure design. They called it the Spokes Council. Are you guys familiar with that? Yeah, so they have a charter instead of how do I put it? A traditional corporate employer-employee or traditional co-op structure, where the hub is like the hub of a wheel, a wagon wheel, for example, and the hub has a charter to hold the spokes together, and the end of the spokes on the wheel are these entities, which are, projects, co-ops, business startups, protest movements, whatever. And so the design of I'm just wondering, because I couldn't see those circles that you were talking about. Is there any knowledge, awareness of that? What kind of a structure of dealing with this issue of silos, dealing with this issue of learning from one another, dealing with relationships between entities, how the holistic systems cooperative is internally, if you open up the door, the cabinet, the closet, what's in there? So that's what I'm asking. I don't know what's the right words to say that. I'm fascinated with this charter concept, because the charter concept allows you to create a administrative community practice, to use Justin's words, that have to do with what's the purpose and the goals, and then the elements of practice are out there on the edges of the spokes. I'm just sort of thinking about this,
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get asked to be a consultant about this, so this is a new field I'm sticking my toes in. So, what do you think?
Yeah. It's all incredibly important. Yeah, I think it all to me falls under, the umbrella of what are our community agreements. So what are the community agreements? So what are what is our governance model? How are we making decisions? What is our ownership model or stewardship model, really? Our co-stewardships, what is the operational, the coordination, structure. So did I get right? So there's legal, there's coordination and operations, there's governance and decision making, there's financial, ownership, right? So all, yeah, that's what I'm hearing you speak to, right? These, and right, there's plenty there.
There's co-learning. I'm going to throw that back. I'm not going to let you get off the time. It's co-learning, because we're in this together. We're learning, and there's an infinite development of personal and social objectives. It's just infinite, personal and social. And so I don't know about this idea of ownership, because that is the problem, isn't it? It's the ownership. There was a quote by somebody. Well, if we go back to commons, before the concept of ownership it was a commons.
Right, right. And that's something it's hard, like trying to move away from really from that word, because it isn't about co-ownership. It's like, co-stewardship is the word that we're using. And a lot of times I do find that I use that word co-ownership still, because I want to get across the idea to people that might not understand what co-stewardship is, but maybe I just need to abandon it.
Well,
oh yeah.
yeah.
Ownership guidelines. Yeah. Yeah. So there's, I mean, would it be helpful for me to kind of gather what we have, as far as all of those pieces?
I'm getting burned out. I'm going to have to diplomatically retire.
Yeah, we're probably getting at the end there. I mean, we've really brought in a lot. Thank you. Someone brought in put a link or a hyperlink to the document, to the bottom of the document to do that. Yeah, thank you, Tim. Right, there's the
our ownership. Okay,
tech person.
I love that. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, thank you all for sticking around. I would invite folks, right, to share. For now you can send to me, but any thoughts that come in, let's please share them. There's also a logistical question in regards to this. So we have actually just ask the question since we're here. We have a Discord group and that's been kind of our community chat group. It is important at a certain point, having a community chat group that is able to be accessible in the app is a goal. It's a little difficult. Discord has never really caught much traction. And so we're thinking, oh, okay, maybe we move it to Telegram or somewhere else. I do think that it's valuable to have have something? Do folks have any thoughts on that? Because right now, I mean, Telegram seems to be, the most used. But I do think it seems valuable for us to
Yeah.
have a way to kind of like just keep lines of communication open.
Okay, boy, that's a subject dear to my heart, so I have to comment now. I thought I was going to get out of here, but one discourse is an evolution of the old bulletin board system, and it does cost money. Actually, the software is free, the structure, the code, it's open source, but you have to have a internet service provider to host it, and that costs a few bucks. Another outfit that costs money is Mighty Networks. Mighty Networks.
Mhm.
Just a cursory glance, the structural model is very similar between the two of them. They're very deep, profound features of participation, categorization, transactions that can occur in those platforms. I like them a lot. So that's just my 2 cents. I try to participate in what's the one you said? It starts with a D too.
Discord?
Discord, yeah. I just can't get my feet wet there, and I do belong there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Telegram does seem to be a little bit more
Oh,
user-friendly.
I know it. Yes, excuse me. There's a third one. It's groups.io. I think that's the way it goes. Groups.io. I think that might be the right, and it's open. They allow anybody to drop in and they don't charge. I mean, it's amazing. It's not as sophisticated as Discourse or Mighty Networks, but you can get good conversation themes and threads and topics going in it. It's not pretty good, actually. And did you
Yeah.
find it? Groups.io.
Groups.io. I'm jotting everything down in the chat. I hadn't looked at it yet. I mean, I think something like Mighty Networks we're trying to stay away from because we really want, as much as we can, we want to centralize everything in the actual platform we're using, because the more platforms and apps that we ask people to sign up to, the less that's going to happen. So ideally, we're centralizing everything in the actual app as much as we can. But at this point, that real sort of robust group chat functionality, is not something that's on the horizon for the app in the next whatever 3 months or something like that. So
well, if you could run discourse, because the code is free, the structure you need to have. You already have an ISP. You're running it now. Maybe it could just fit right in there.
yeah, I mean, if that's something that has to be implemented, with like code and by a developer, then
No, I mean
that becomes a barrier.
Discourse is fairly easy. I've set it up before, and it took me, like, I have the experience of hosting web applications, but it literally took 8 minutes. While there's always some more configuration and tweaking, and what do they mean by that option? And like, it can be a rabbit hole, but the initial hosting is very quick.
And where does that live? Like, does it live in its own app, or?
It's on GitHub. I mean, that's where the developers are, I think. On GitHub.
I mean, so for the user, would it be something that then like Telegram or Discord, an app that they would put on their phone?
It's a browser based. It's a browser based. So I could go on Discourse, like on the HSC Discourse, using my phone or using my computer. It's like a bulletin board, like those forums, or like you've probably seen it for I have a question about X product, and there's all this community with people posting there. So it's the
Yeah.
same type of platform. Really,
Yeah.
really good one. But
Huh.
I always go back to the question, oh, what are we trying to do? Like, why is Discourse, Telegram, or Discord, or like what kind of communication is encouraged, and what will be the benefit of that tool, especially in an era of like everything needs to be right now, attention grabbing, and so
Right. Right.
like is it more meaningful, thoughtful, deeper conversations? And is it a place to throw ideas? Is it a place for announcement of, hey, there's a community call in 2 hours? So there's so many Telegram places I've been to that I'm like, I don't want to do anything with the project because I'm trying to do something else outdoor, and bing, 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 bing. So I stopped
Mm.
listening and looking.
Yeah. 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 It is a great question. Yeah. What is the purpose of it?
An order I really like
I,
is people, process, product. They're typically shown as the three linked together, but I've changed it in my mind to really people first, then process, then product.
Totally. Yeah. I use that one too, except there's a fourth one. So on top, I put purpose, then people, then process, and then product. Yeah. Yeah.
That's 4.
That's a good one. That's right. Yeah. There's a fourth one that I have in there. I didn't know it was a triangle. But that's cool.
Well, yeah, but you're
Yeah,
building.
yeah. I mean, it's a great point. And I think the idea, yeah. So I think it's a good discussion. You know, for me, right, there's ways to connect with people, you know, on the app, basic ways. You know, and you know, some basic kind of chat features. But there's also something where, yeah, is there an energy in the group that, you know, that sort of wants to have a place to be, um, you know, fostered. So to me, that's right, because I have these meetings, you know, like we have these meetings and I jump off, right? And I'm like, you know, afterwards I want to be like, oh, Paul, thanks for coming to the meeting. You know, and Paul put this thing in, and oh, isn't this interesting? And oh, and Tony said this, right? And like, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just my purpose, you know, is to have a place where I can like pop in quick things to people, and you know, in this kind of group energy, but I don't have to like individually like email everybody and say, oh, thank you for that one thing and thank you for this. Um, yeah, so that's like what, you know, and also right, announcements and, you know, hey, don't forget the meeting's coming up in an hour, stuff like that. Yeah, does the community want it? Do we need it? That is a great question.
Well, no, but then I'm gonna push back. It's the purpose. Getting back to what Tim is talking about. I mean, these projects, worker co-ops, group entities, discussion boards survive because of the conveners' consciousness, social skill, gregariousness, his or her inspiration and role modeling. They set the tone and the tenor. And so I have been in a lot of groups where they create the group and nothing happens. So you can't have it done democratically. It has to be done as a teacher, as someone's doing the invitation or setting the agenda gently, and then getting out of the way and allowing the energy and the participation and engagement to occur. But you can't start with the engagement and the participation. The challenge is the invitation and how the invitation is structured as does it elicit engagement? It's going to for sure elicit reaction. The reaction could be negative, the reaction could be positive, the reaction, but the throw the ball out it starts that way. Whether they catch it or run with it is another story. So, which you guys, all of us are now answering the question I've been thinking about when I came here today was, what is the sort of the purpose and the identity of that holds this thing together? I hesitate to say what I within the answer to that question, because if I say that, then I'm not allowing us to have a dialogue to create that concept. So, and this is not the place, I don't think, that we can theorize here about it, but to actually talk about I didn't study the HS systems enough to understand the purpose. I mean, yeah, we got these words about collaboration and co-learning, but I'm going to hold back because I've been burned. I don't want to say burned. I put energy into groups, and then the damn owner of the group changes things, and it's not, that, oh my God, I thought we were going down this path, and now we're going down this path, and this is not what we started off. Or we went to another coder person, or we had to have a revisit the objectives. And so, I would like to see a more fundamental driven, value-based, human ethical design with a built-in accountability structure, grievance procedure, respect for difference and respect for change, so that we can evolve and cope. Okay. That has to be organically in it. I don't know if I have the right words to even speak to that right now, but just bringing it up in theory, but in practice would be great to do that. You would transcend the current status quo. We need to transcend, we need to transform to get to Bohm's theory of critical consciousness, as Freire talks about. And the evolution to deal with the natural instinct of individual development and social development, the evolution of our species. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, there's there's a lot. And one piece in all that comes to mind, right, is to me it's an interesting exploration of saying this, okay, like holding that purpose and holding the identity and having kind of birthed that. So I do think that there is, I do think that HSC, has this kind of identity and has an ethos and, has this kind of basic purpose. But it's been an interesting exploration, and I think will continue to be, to say how does that purpose and that identity evolve as the people come in who are who are co-creating it, and it's been fascinating to see that, right? Because there's some things that have started from the beginning that are still in place, and there's some things that have that have really evolved, and so. Yeah, I don't see it as, one or the other, that, okay, I'm the founder and I have to just like, hold this all, but also not on the other extreme, which is, just kind of like let everything go mushy. I think there's a yeah, there's this ongoing exploration and evolving. And right, the evolving and the evolving with the group is so fascinating to me. That is a delight. to, to me to say, okay, oh, I have this idea and want to do this thing, and then to see like, oh, okay, well, in reality, this is how it, looks, and this is how it, actually works with people, and these are, you know, the ideas that come in and continue to inform it. So yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of details.
Well, I want to say thank you so much to everybody for making this happen. This is a treasure, priceless.
And Rob, I have a question. Is there a single place where all of the pieces are? Because I've a couple of windows open. I have a notation window open. I have a Google Doc open. I'm on the apps.
I hear you. Yeah, I just saw that and wrote in there. I would say at this point, there's not like the single place where you can then go and kind of access everything else in a single home for all of the information. Right now, the website, and then there's some stuff that's kind of hanging on. I don't think that having that is far away. It's or that difficult. It's just a matter of like, have like myself at this point having the resources to actually like finish, to make that happen. So that's the long answer. The short answer is no, not at this point. And it's one of those things on the roadmap. Yeah.
Picking up roadmap and me being against adding more. But I like when organizations have a roadmap of these are ideas like Kanban board style ideas, ideas that have been selected, working on, testing, done, so that it brings visibility to where the organization is heading, what is being prioritized as well. So
10,
Yeah.
3 o'clock.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, it's uh yeah, we go, go along. It's the yeah, I guess in and like to say an authentic way, it's yeah, I wish I had, I had more time and resources to be doing these things and moving them along, faster. Um, and sometimes, yeah, and and others, right? It's not just me. But I think everybody's in that situation. So just to name that and also name like these are, yeah, like yes to all of that. These are fantastic ideas, and I appreciate the input.
beauty of constraint, knowing what to prioritize or not knowing what to prioritize and dancing with it. So yeah. And if we had unlimited time, we'd had other problems.
Yeah. Some of these, like constraints, right, is part of what created, and birthed this in the first place. Is to say, it's not to not have constraints, but yeah, that's part of it, is to say, hey, what, like I'm spending, so much time on meeting my basic survival needs, like too much time and effort because I'm having to do it in this system that divides us. So it's like, no, let's flip this thing around. Yeah. Yeah. Not to not ever do work, not to just, be lying around all day, all the time. I mean, that's not that's bad, but to say like, yeah, to come into, like actual alignment and be able to have more resources to bring my energies and efforts to, what's really important. Yeah. How should yeah, so should we wrap up for the day? Thank you all. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm really appreciate all the input and the energy and everybody staying. And thanks for weighing in on the chat question. I think that's one that we've been discussing, and there's not a clear answer at this point. So that's why it's great to get some feedback. Yeah, so I would say, like jump in the platform, and I would say, feel free to be in contact. We have love for you to join next week. Just continue along, keep this train moving, and see what we have. Tim, I'm actually very interested, yeah, in like your skill sets. I think some of your skill sets are right because I'm working in the tech world, but I'm not a developer. So yeah, I'm kind of interested in sort of maybe chatting a little bit more about your skill sets and where you are as far as kind of your career. I looked at your profile a little bit, so I see that there might be, some ways where you're trying to shift things. So yeah, at some point I'd be interested in chatting about that and seeing if there's any collaborations, that are possible or what your goals are.
Well, okay, there's people doing work, and maybe we'll need a meeting. There's other organizations that are sister brother parallel. I just posted Simbi.com, where it's a huge resource of talent. They will do work for free. There's transition something. There are time banks. There are I didn't really make a study of that. That gets to, creating a network of plastic systems office can be a hub of a network to bring in this energy and talent. So we need to outreach and impact them and go. But then you won't be having all on your show. My dog, I'm going crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, that's a right. There's a lot of that's a great question as well. That in this exploration, right, is how much are we bringing people in just to how are we bringing people in to engage in roles and tasks in HSC. And is it, really, is it members or is it, sort of volunteers coming in? Why are they volunteering? Bye, Tony. Thank you. Yeah. So really, the general plan, right? The general strategy, which you are now deep in, the general plan was to say, okay, we have things set at this kind of MVP level, and now let's have this launch and share this offering with with a group, and then see who wants to join in, right? Cool. Thanks, Paul. All right, be in touch. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I should go too. And then, take it from there. So you kind of see who shows up now, and then yeah, and who sticks around, and then where, then how we can address things. So rather than sort of go out and try and find a bunch of volunteers, just say, okay, well, like wants to come in and is interested in what we're doing here, and yeah, be this kind of more initial catalyst, and then from there we can say, okay, now what do we need? who shows up, who's sticking around, what's the next, what's the next evolution. So yeah, just to kind of finish my thought on that.
Yeah, uncertain. Things are going to move and evolve, and and structures will change. So yeah, I really need to go as well. Nice seeing you again, Rob. And yeah, I think the calendar is mostly up to date, likely, but there's a few live things that I haven't put, like event stuff that I haven't put in the calendar. So
Yeah, no
see if there's a
worries.
time that works. And for future events, um, don't know, like for future calls, how do I know the times and such? Will I receive a message from Christine or?
You'll receive, so, you'll receive like a weekly email on Monday. Yeah, so you should receive a weekly email on Monday. And the events are always, they're always the same time. So it's, on Wednesdays, if Wednesdays are, at this time is your kind of day to come, then it's always the same time. Also, I can share with you, there's I can add you to like the calendar, um, if you'd like, the Google Calendar.
Yeah,
I can send you an invite for that. I don't remember how to do that. Um, let me see. Oh, here. I can share that with you. So I just sent you like an invite for that. So if that's the easiest way. Um, and right, yeah, that'll show you sort of, in an ongoing manner the events. We have also the events calendar on the website. Um, we can download those, but I think those would only download as or onto your calendar as particular instances.
trying to rename it. It's currently called tasks. How do I even rename that?
It should be called HSC community meetings.
Some reason they called it tasks on my
Huh.
but I'll
I
figure
can put
that.
in the that's weird. I can put in the chat. Oh, here, I'm gonna